New York Times, 5th of March 2024, a slight paradise is the Maldives. Why do India and China be at odds over it? To dominate the Indian Ocean, China is enslaving lesser nations to construct staging areas and posts for its navy. Beyond a few coral specks in the Indian Ocean, a highway ribbon that exceeds 1 mile in length emerges from the abyss. Since 2018, the China-Maldives Friendship Bridge has linked Malé, the densely populated metropolis of this archipelago, with the Chinese-built international airport located one island to the east. However, China is not the only nation seeking amicability with the Maldives. Adjacent to Indira Gandhi Memorial Hospital, a 20-minute stroll through the capital will lead to a longer sea bridge connecting Malé to the islands to the west. This one is being constructed with funds and labor sourced from India. The Maldives, a tourism-dependent nation with a population of nearly 500,000, is inconsequential compared to the world's most numerous countries, India and China. However, each minor setback is significant in the rivalry between these two dominant powers for sway in South Asia. As a result, the Maldives have found themselves halfway between them. India has historically occupied a strategic position in the region, exerting considerable economic and military influence. However, despite this, China has made substantial progress using its considerably more significant financial resources to secure access to ports in the countries bordering India and to sign infrastructure agreements. Due to its location, Asia's superpowers regard the Maldives as a strategic imperative. China must maintain a military presence in the Arabian Sea to protect its energy imports from the Persian Gulf. India, embroiled in territorial disputes with China along its Himalayan border, is also concerned that its neighboring island nation, the Maldives, does not develop an undue affinity for Beijing. A sudden dispute erupted between India and the Maldives in January over a perceived threat to the tourism industry, which is the sustenance of the islands. However, the great power rivalry across the azure lagoons of the Maldives has not yet intensified. Losses and gains are primarily determined by the inclinations of Maldivian politicians, which are at times more pro-China and at others more pro-India, and, above all else, by the financial resources that both parties invest to capture the hearts and minds of the Maldivians. Mohammed Saeed, the Minister of Economic Development and Trade for the Maldives, articulates his nation's issue succinctly from his high-rise office overlooking the marina of Malé. Presently, its annual economy is valued at approximately $6.5 billion, of which $6 billion is generated by tourism and the remaining portion by tuna fishing. Objectively, the economy should reach $12 billion within the following 5 years. Since 1972, when it discovered tourist dollars, the Maldives has attracted over 1 million visitors annually to its upscale resorts, distinguished by water villas on wooden boardwalks. Only in 2008, following the election of the charismatic youthful leader Mohammed Nasheed, did the nation attain democracy. Ahmed Mutsu, the incumbent president, was sworn in 5 months ago, marking the most recent oscillation in the bilateral relations between India and China. Following his inauguration, Mr. Mutsu ran on the India Out platform, which advocated removing approximately 80 Indian military personnel stationed in the Maldives to offer assistance. Mr. Saeed, an appointee of the Mutsu, was a cabinet minister during the last pro-China administration, which oversaw the construction of the China-Maldives Friendship Bridge. A free trade agreement with China was under his supervision. However, he has recently adopted the position that the government led by Mr. Mutsu is exclusively pursuing a pro-Maldives stance. He asserts that China is not preferred. Instead, we extend our invitation to all countries to engage in free trade to obtain the highest possible price for our tuna. Fostering amicable relations with India and China concurrently may be the most prudent course of action. According to writer and former diplomat Mimar Ghafoor, this became more challenging as both nations intensified their influence campaigns while the Maldives underwent a democratic transition. China has more substantial financial resources, as evidenced by its development institutions surpassing India's. Mr. Ghafoor noted, however, that while China has primarily carrots, India has both the stick and the carrots. Due to this, the Maldives are reliant on their neighboring country during critical circumstances. Mr. Ghafoor enumerated a series of critical situations in which Indian assistance was indispensable, including repelling a Sri Lanka-backed coup in 1988, delivering 1,200 tons of freshwater via airplane and tanker to alleviate a shortage in 2014, during which the Maldives was led by a president leaning towards China, and more. In addition to financial and geographical considerations, India and China differ significantly as competitors in another critical way, as illustrated earlier this year during the dispute between the Maldives and India. Three subordinate ministers criticized Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister of India, on social media following his promotion of Lakshadweep, an even smaller and considerably less developed archipelago regarded as a paradisiacal atoll, the Maldivians, who India out-perceived an economic peril looming over them. Nationalistic Indians, in the much louder backlash, demanded a boycott of the islands. The strained diplomatic ties provided a juxtaposition to China, which exercises absolute message control. This enables it to negotiate with lesser nations in private settings. Although Beijing is comparatively less at ease with the new democracy in the Maldives than New Delhi, it has managed relations equally. An ardent supporter of democracy, a high-ranking member of parliament, Eva Abdullah, is ardently Indian. However, she is generally anti-oscillatory. She stated, "Flip-flopping on foreign policy is not in our best interest. Security considerations are absent, and it fails to facilitate any form of stability in development projects." Ms. Abdullah, a cousin of the former president, Mr. Nasheed, argues that there are numerous reasons to support India as a partner. She alludes to the fact that they are democratic republics of South Asian descent. In addition to hospitals and schools on remote islands, India's finances include a cultural center in Malé that promotes Indian dance and yoga. Although the Maldives are ostensibly a 100% Muslim nation, many are offended by Mr. Modi's pro-Hindu policies at home. Ms. Abdullah stated, "We cannot afford a fistfight with India despite this." Both she and the president, Mr. Mutsu, whose parties will be engaged in a fierce contest in the April parliamentary elections, reached a consensus on this matter. Mr. Mutsu has intensified his advocacy for comprehensive Maldivian nationalism, valuing the archipelago's Islamic heritage and indigenous language while avoiding any overt criticism of India. Although he reluctantly complied with his pledge to expel Indian military personnel, India has continued with its development initiatives. One of the most noticeable is an enormous airport expansion on the island of Hanamadu, which is 1 hour's flight north of Malé. One of the aircraft utilized by the Indian airmen resides there. Particular Maldivians are apprehensive about the possibility that their sovereign territory is being readied for use as a battleground in another nation's conflict due to this type of undertaking. With a population of 2,664, Hanamadu appears to have little need for the additional runways that an Indian company is constructing. Neither do the adjacent, less traveled islands. Nonetheless, around-the-clock excavation machines are essentially re-engineering the perilous island so that it can accommodate enormous aircraft. Comparable in design to an airport constructed by the Indians at the opposite end of the nation, Hanamadu appears to be a pattern. Maldivians are not the only individuals who hold this view. Ranjit, an Indian laborer on site, stated that the rationale for India's decision to construct a military-ready facility at this location was self-evident. "China is approaching," he declared. "Are you unable to observe the Chinese vessels preparing?" The Xiaoyang Hongou 3, classified as a Chinese research vessel, arrived in Malé on February 22. According to the Maldives administration, it was merely a port call. Similar to the Indian airport initiatives, however, the ship's potential military applications remain shrouded in ambiguity.